Hello, middle 3. Now today we will talk inshallah about last lesson in the syllabus, which is sexual and asexual reproduction. Okay? How do the genetic traits pass from parents to children? How do you get some of the genetic traits from your parents? By the reproduction process. Okay? What's meant by reproduction process? It's the biological process where the living organism produces new individual of the same kind and thus ensuring the continuity. يعني human will bring a baby human, the animal will bring a baby animal, يعني the same kind, يعني cat will bring a kitten, the dog will bring a puppy, and so on. Okay, so the biological process where the living organism produces new individual of the same kind to ensure the continuity of their species. This is what's called by reproduction process. طيب, we have two types of reproduction, which are asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction occurs in single-celled living organism and primitive organism, while the sexual reproduction occurs in the most higher living organism, plants and animals. Okay? The asexual reproduction needs only one living organism, and parent only one parent, while sexual reproduction, two living organisms, one is the male and the other is the female. The examples for the asexual reproduction organism, or the organism which undergo asexual reproduction, they are the amoeba, yeast, starfish, and a lot of other organisms. We will talk about them later. Okay? In sexual reproduction, rabbits, for example, and man. The type of cell division used in asexual reproduction is mitosis. Why? Because in the asexual reproduction, the number of chromosomes in the produced organism equal that in the original organism, or in the parent. They are equal. While the type of cell division in the sexual reproduction is meiosis, as we studied in lesson 1. Let's now talk about the asexual reproduction, in which the living organism produces new individual having genetic traits identical to the parent. The genetic traits here are identical to the parent. There is no genetic variation like what happens in meiosis, okay? It occurs in the unicellular living organism and in some multicellular animals and plants. It takes place by mitosis division, which doesn't require special system or structure in the living organism. يبقى asexual reproduction needs no special system and structure. Why? Because it takes place by mitosis division, which doesn't need any special system or structure. We have a lot of types of the asexual reproduction. We will talk about 5 of them: binary fission, budding, regeneration, spore propagation, and vegetation reproduction. Binary fission, budding, regeneration, spore propagation, vegetation reproduction. Number 1, binary fission. Binary fission occurs in the unicellular living organisms such as amoeba and paramecium. Okay, in amoeba and paramecium. It also occurs in some simple algae and bacteria. How does the reproduction by binary fission occur? First, for example, as you see here in this picture, a bacterial cell. What happens? A bacterial cell it have a cell wall and a genetic material. The genetic material doubles. Then the genetic material spreads into 2 cells. Then the 2 identical cells are produced. Each is identical to the original cell. It's very, very simple. The genetic material double, then half of the genetic material go to each cell, then the 2 cells are separated. The cells that are resulted from binary fission are identical. Why? Because they are resulted from mitotic division. There is no here reduction in the number of chromosomes. The genetic material doubles and then it spreads into 2 cells. So they are the same. Okay? They are typical or identical to the parent cell. Number 2 of the asexual reproduction types, budding. What's meant by budding? Where it occurs? It occurs in unicellular living organism as yeast or fungus, بعض المالتيسيلر organisms such as الهيدرا والسبونجز. okay. How to discover مثلا reproduction, asexual reproduction in the yeast fungus. We will take a piece of yeast and sugar solution and warm water, and then we will يعني put them together. Add 1 milli sugar to 2 milli yeast in a plate and leave them in a warm place for 10 minutes. okay. Then you will put a drop of the mixture on a glass slide and then place the cover and then examine the slide under the microscope. What will you observe? You will observe that the bud in the yeast emerge as a lateral bulge in the cell, as you see in this picture. Yes, the bud emerges as lateral bulge in the cell. Then the cell nucleus divides into 2 nuclei. One of them remains in the parent cell and the other migrates to the bud. The bud grows gradually and remains connected to the parent cell until it's fully grown. Then it separates from it. As you see here in this picture, that's what we will see under the microscope. You will see that some cells of the yeast contain a bulge, from lateral bulge يعني, and then the nucleus inside the cell will divide into 2 nuclei. One of them remains in the parent cell and other migrates to the bud. البud بقى will grow gradually and remains connected until it's fully grown. Then it's separated or not separated. If it's separated, it will produce another yeast cell by its own. But if it's not separated, it will produce a colony. Okay, they will be a colony, as the picture here. You will see like this. It's a colony of yeast. Okay. طيب, let's talk about another type of asexual reproduction, which is the regeneration. The regeneration is the ability of the animal to compensate the missing parts. يعني, what's meant by this? The living organism can reproduce by one of its parts. It occurs in some animals, such as the starfish. يبقى how the starfish can reproduce? Starfish could regenerate and give out a complete animal if they contain a part of the central disc of the animal. يعني, if the starfish, one of its arms are cut or more of its arms are cut, but there is part of the central disc, which is the middle of the star, okay, this part is present, then the starfish can regenerate or compensate the missing part. If the chromosome number in cells of starfish is 2n, the number of chromosomes in the cell resulted by regeneration is 2n2. Type why? Because the regeneration is asexual reproduction. It occurs by mitosis, so there is no reduction in the number of chromosomes. You have to take care from this part. The fourth type of the asexual reproduction is the spore propagation or sporogony. It occurs in some fungi as bread mold fungus and mushroom. How does it occur? What's the steps? Let's talk about it now. The spore propagation or sporogony occurs in some fungi as the bread mold fungus and mushrooms, also in some algae. Each sporangium, for example, in the bread mold fungus, each sporangium, the plural of it is sporangia, okay, ruptures. What happened when the sporangium ruptures? A large number of spores are released from the sporangium. A large number of spores are released from the sporangium. When the spore find a suitable environment, they start to grow to give a new organism. This is the type of reproduction or the way of reproduction. As you see in this picture, this is the sporangium. It's full of spores. When the sporangium rupture, the spores comes out of the sporangium and spreads in the environment as a spore. Okay, then the spore find a suitable environment that it have its food and it can grow in it. They start growing to give a new organism. Okay, how to grow? By mitotic division, to give a new fungus. This fungus is identical to the parent fungus. This is the type or the way of reproduction in the spore propagation type أو sporogony in the fungus, bread mold fungus or the mushrooms. The last type of the asexual reproduction is the vegetative propagation أو the vegetative reproduction. Okay, it occurs in the plants by, of course, mitotic division. It occurs without the need of seeds, but only by the plant vegetative organs, such as the root, for example, the stem, the leaves. Okay, for example, such as the carrots. مثلا, for example, you can grow carrot by the root. You can take the carrot, yes, the crop which is carrot. It's the root of the plant. Okay, in order to produce new plant which is identical to the parent plant. It also occurred by the plant cell in something called tissue culture. When we grow plants in plate, not in the soil, okay, in the lab, this is called tissue culture. So it occurs by the plant cell in the tissue culture, vegetative reproduction. This is the types of the asexual reproduction, which are binary fission, budding, regeneration, spore propagation, and vegetative propagation. Okay. So now the asexual reproduction produces individual or offspring identical in genetic structure to the living organism or the original organism. Due to what? Mitotic division. The new offspring gets a full copy of the parent's genetic trait, the same as the parent. All the genetic traits in the parent are in the offspring, okay? Number of chromosomes in the parent cell equal the number of chromosomes in the offspring equals to n. No genetic variation between the offspring and the parents. Right, now let's go to the sexual reproduction. It's the process by which living organisms produce individuals with traits different from the parents. يبقى in the sexual reproduction, the living organism produce offsprings or individual having genetic traits different from the parents and different from each other, because there is genetic variation here in the sexual reproduction. It occurs in the higher living organism, occurs between two parental individuals, male and female. The sexual reproduction depends on two main processes: formation of gametes and fertilization. يبقى sexual reproduction have two processes: formation of gametes and fertilization process. Type formation of gametes, we studied it in lesson 1 in the cell division. It's by the meiosis division. Gametes are formed of cells known as the reproductive cells by the meiotic or meiosis division. Gametes resulting from this division contains half the number of chromosomes of the organism somatic cell. يعني a reproductive cell or somatic cell contains 2n, while the gamete contains only 1n. Okay? Haploid number, half the number of chromosomes. As you see here in meiosis, the meiosis 1 is the reduction division where the reproductive cell gives me 2 cells, each of them contain 1n. Then meiosis 2 occur, the second meiotic division, which gives 4 gametes or 4 sex cells. In the male they are called sperms, and in the female they are called ova. Okay? The second process بقى, which is called fertilization. It's the combination of the male gamete and the female gamete to form a zygote, which contains the normal number of chromosomes of the organism, 2n. يعني when I get a male gamete, sperm, and a female gamete, an ovum, they are combined together. Each of them have n, okay, n chromosomes. The combination between them forms a zygote. This zygote contains the normal number of chromosomes as the organism, which is 2n. يبقى this zygote contains genetic material from both the parents. When it grows, it gives a new offspring whose traits combining each parent's traits. يبقى, as we know here in the sexual reproduction, we have 2 processes: formation of gametes, then fertilization. The fertilization is the combination between the female gamete and the male gamete to form a zygote. The zygote contains a number of chromosomes as the original parent, يعني mother or father. It contains 2N, okay? And it contains the genetic material from both parents. The sexual reproduction is a source of genetic variation, of course, because the offspring are resulting from the offsprings resulting from sexual reproduction combines the genetic traits from two sources. Yes, they take genes from male parent and from the female parent. So the resulted offspring have new genetic traits that combine both the parent traits. The sexual reproduction is a source of genetic variation. The chromosomes or number of gametes is just N because gametes are produced from meiotic division after the fertilization of the zygote of 2N is produced, which grows performing the organism. يبقى الgametes are produced from meiotic division. So this means a reduction of the number of chromosomes. So the gametes contain 1N. After بقى fertilization, the zygote بقى of 2N chromosomes is produced. The comparison between sexual and asexual reproduction. The sexual reproduction needs two organisms, male and female. The asexual, only one organism. The sexual reproduction occurs in most higher living organisms like plants and animals, while the asexual reproduction occurs in single-celled living organisms and some multicellular. While a type of division in sexual reproduction is meiotic division, in the asexual reproduction is mitotic division. The genetic traits in the offspring in the sexual reproduction, it's combination from the two sources, male and female, while the asexual, it's full copy of the parent's genetic traits. Okay? Now the lesson of sexual and asexual reproduction is finished and the syllabus is finished. Good luck inshallah in the quiz or in the test. You have to know in this lesson the drawings, the binary fission, okay, in amoeba or in bacteria. You have to also know the drawing of the budding division, the spore propagation, and the sexual reproduction is formation of gametes and fertilization. Okay, these drawings are for you to know the drawings, يعني, or to understand more. And we will draw it inshallah together in the class on Sunday and Monday. Okay. Good luck in the test. We finished the syllabus and I will see you inshallah in the school to perform the last revision. Thank you. Bye.